Welcome back to the show that yet does not have a name. Because we're still on suggestion number 40 of the 50 that we need to eventually come up with whatever it is that we're going to actually call this thing.
We have to go through a Rolodex of suggestions, right?
We still don't have any graphics, music, credentials or credits.
Credentials or credits? Isn't there like a podcast name generator online somewhere that we could just...
I think it's called AI.
Oh, let's do that.
I mean, I kind of already did that, and that's how I came up with some of the suggestions we were working with.
Oh, it's already helping us out so much. It's definitely going to be the wave of the future. Thanks, AI.
So this is episode 2 of whatever the fuck this is.
Yes.
Us discussing the first season of The West Wing.
Correct.
We left off after the first 3 episodes, so we're picking up with episode 4 here. And just to give you a quick overview, if you are watching this for the first time, episode 4 of season 1 of The West Wing was called 5 Votes Down. It premiered on October 13th, 1999. It was directed by Michael Lehman, story by Lawrence O'Donnell Jr. and Patrick Cadell, teleplay by Aaron Sorkin. Quick summary here. The White House has surprisingly lost 5 votes for an incremental gun control bill that we left off with at episode 3. So the West Wing staff worked during the 3 remaining days to regain the votes, for the passage of the bill. After Leo forgets his wedding anniversary, his wife announces that she is leaving him. Josh and Toby encounter difficulties over their personal financial disclosures, which are being shared publicly. The last gun bill vote is secured thanks to the Vice President. God, it is too late for me to be reading live reads. Okay, to the Vice President who counted on being the hero of the process. Okay, so just starting out here, likes and dislikes for episode 4.
Okay, so this one I had a little bit of a hard time following the multiple storylines, right? So There's the gun thing going on, but then there's also this money spending thing, which I thought was a little bit humorous with all of the things that they were talking about. But then there's this other storyline with Leo, and it felt like there were so many things going on in one episode. But this thing with Leo's wife is clearly going to carry over into multiple episodes, right? Because this is like the dissolution of his marriage. But the lines in the show are 100%, my job in this gun bill is more important than my marriage. And that is said multiple times. And
So let's start there, okay?
Yeah.
What is your impression of what a chief of staff of a White House does?
So the chief of staff is the one who's like pushing out the agenda of the administration, correct? Right?
Well, he's an administrator of the administrator. Essentially put, it's like an executive secretary, more or less.
Yeah.
He tries to keep the person who has to make all the decisions in line and is sitting in all of the most important meetings. He's facilitating all of these different policy agendas, et cetera, et cetera. He becomes more or less the second in command for the administration.
Right.
So when you have possibly the largest managerial job in the world, because that's what President of the United States really is. It is the largest executive job of the largest single employer in the entire world.
Right, okay.
Between the military and all the administrative staff and all the other things that the federal government does, especially with the bureaucratic state that has expanded exponentially since the New Deal era. And then you have a secondary person who takes it upon themselves for the betterment of the country. Because I think that's the one thing that really comes through for Leo McGarry and most of this staff is that they are dedicated public servants. quote unquote. I know most of the time we talk about people being public servants, and politicians don't really view themselves that way so much per se, but these are people, at least in the idyllic sense, that, and we've talked about the fact that this is a very idyllic show, are really trying to be public servants, first and foremost. And so he has a limited opportunity where, as it comes out later in the show, that he and Bartlett are basically best friends.
Right.
And this is going to be his time to shepherd a set of policy forward, because the president, while he's also a supreme executive, he is also the chairman, so to speak, of the board, meaning that when there's new policy set and the rest of it, his agenda does push what the legislative agenda is anymore, especially in a unitary executive theory zone that we've been living in for probably the last 30 years. So he has this unique and rare opportunity. So I'm not saying that the gun bill by itself is more important than its marriage. It's the job of being chief of staff in this very limited time that is more important. Now, again, where we pick up with this show is like probably 9 months to a year into the first term of the Bartlett administration. And realistically put, you have had these conversations before you run for something like that. Like Leo was going to be the executive campaign manager. He was going to be the guy that was running it. To me, it feels in a real sense like they're writing this backward. Like anybody who's going to go through that significant of a commitment that you're going to be running the federal government, you talk to your significant other and make sure that they understand before you take on these responsibilities that they're basically not going to see you for an extended period of time. You don't get to be a regular person for 4 or 8 years. That is the responsibility. They know they are also sacrificing for everything that's going on. And frankly, anybody that's in a very high and competitive job and they know and understand that before you take on that responsibility, especially with something as voluntary as running for president, managing a White House, and the federal government. So to me, it doesn't make sense, but dealing with the facts as they are presented in this show, I understand where both of them are coming from.
Sure. I do too, and I think, is it at the end of this episode, or is it the end of the next episode where he goes to a secret, like, AA meeting in the basement?
It's the end of this one.
It's the end of this one, and I was like, okay, so now we've got some backstory, and I think that I rolled my eyes a little bit because this is a trope, right? It's the guy in the high-powered job who had a previous drinking problem or currently has a drinking problem or whatever, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take it, and we'll roll with it. It was a lot to keep track of, and because and I know that you can't in an hour-long drama focus on one thing too much because people are going to get bored, but I wanted to hear more about the senator or congressman, was it Willis? That's the next one.
Now.
That's the next one, right?
No, that's episode 6.
Yes, now I'm looking at it. Yes. So this one, then the underhanded stuff with the vice president, he gets to come in and save the day. I don't know. This one I had a hard time with. The only things that I really enjoyed was them talking about the money that they got or the gifts that they got or those sorts of jokes. And I just said, okay, I'm just going to sit passively and watch this happen. And is this where they're threatening people too? Like, you better vote with us? Yeah, I don't know. This episode was not for me.
Okay. Understood. I mean, there is a lot to the deal making and the legislative process when you're actually trying to go through the legislature. I will say, from a current modern perspective where you're just talking at legislators, and saying, you have to pass my bill or I'm going to run a primary against you. That's kind of where we're at right now. Like, everybody kind of knows that's the deal.
Yeah.
But also, the one part that you did like was the disclosures. And it feels rather quaint that all of them had to disclose these, like, really paltry gifts of, like, $150 or something.
Right.
When we literally have the head of our current government accepting a plane from Qatar.
And I think maybe it's just because the disclosure statements had an element of humor to them,
sure.
and it was a little bit tongue-in-cheek, and it wasn't quite as serious. And maybe it's because it was up against something serious like a gun bill that I was like, maybe it was the juxtaposition was too much. I don't know. It just felt like all of a sudden this bill is a really big deal. This bill is a really big deal. But then we don't have any information about the bill until like the last 5-10 minutes.
Yeah. So there's a lot packed into this, as it has more to deal with how the characters react to certain situations than anything else.
Yeah. Okay.
For example, Toby has this issue with buying a stock and whatever else, and they figure their way out of it within the course of an hour. But it could explode into something else where it's insider trading. But Congress does that literally all the time.
Yes.
I mean, the current Treasury Secretary and his sons are out and about making a lot of money off of the current government. So, okay, like I get it where we're going with a lot of these things, but it's how does Hoynes factor into this equation? And, does he know something that the rest of us don't know, which is, I'll spoil it a little bit. He does. Mm-hmm. He knows something rather large.
Okay.
But that won't come up this season. So there's a whole lot still bubbling and trying to build as you build an ensemble show. And because of that, there's so many disparate and various characters. Like, you're getting 30-second interactions with Donna Moss right now. Yeah. But it's still building who that character is.
Right.
So you're going to get very small slivers and slices, but it's still in the compact of what the day-to-day operations of a government really is. And I think that's one of the things that the show does at least capture is the pace at which things move on a day-to-day basis for a government that's dealing with foreign policy at the same time that they're dealing with a legislative agenda, and then they have any number of other small security items, or who knows, it's going to have all of its own stuff.
Right.
I just find I find pieces of this like very, very quaint.
I guess quaint, is the right word. And honestly, I like Toby just kind of being like, I didn't do anything wrong. This is a complete coincidence, and I don't know what.
But
to
in
do.
politics, it's not so much whether you did something wrong; it's the perception that you did.
100%. And he's like, "Do I need a lawyer?" And she's like, "I am a lawyer." Like,
well, she should have advised him at a certain point that he needed to get his own personal lawyer because, White House counsel is not your own personal lawyers.
Right.
And they will tell you that's actually in the rules of ethics that they should advise you to get your own counsel.
Yeah. Anyway, this again. I understand this one. This episode.
All right. So we're about 15 minutes in. We still have 2 episodes to go through. So in the interest of having this actually be about an hour instead of 2 hours like the first episode was, we'll move on for you. That's fine. All right. The next episode is entitled The Crackpots and These Women. It was released on October 20th, 1999. It was directed by Anthony Drazen and written by Aaron Sorkin. The summary here, the staff members participate in Leo's Big Block of Cheese Day, which is a recurring theme. Like, they have this at least once a season.
Okay.
When they meet with fringe special interest groups who normally cannot get attention from the White House. Josh receives a card from the National Security Council and later learns that he is the only senior staff member other than Leo who will receive protection in the event of a nuclear attack. Uncomfortable about his special treatment, he eventually returns the card, believing that he does not deserve to be singled out among his friends. Sam and CJ discuss the possibility of a virus infection going rampant in the U.S. and how it could be contained without available antivirus. Zoe Bartlett, the youngest first daughter, arrives at the White House, and the president holds a celebratory chili supper in her honor for the members of his inner circle. Now, I did tell you in our first episode that the president's daughter would be making an appearance this week, and it would be a relatively famous actress who would be making her acting debut in this show, who happens to be Elizabeth Moss. So, first impressions.
She irritates me. She totally irritates me. My thought was, oh my gosh, later when she's in The Handmaid's Tale, she is in it, and so is Bradley Whitford. And so that's actually a really interesting reunion between them. And also their characters are really similar and yet completely dissimilar to the characters that they play here. I don't think that Elizabeth Moss is a necessarily bad actress. She rubs me the wrong way, and I'm not sure why. It could be that I know that she's a Scientologist, and that bothers me.
Okay.
But I was like, oh gosh, she looks really young. And then I started being like, yep, I would have been about her age or so when this show was coming out. So she and I are basically, I'm just like a teeny bit older. So she and I are basically in the same thing. So I was trying
contemporaries.
Correct. Peers almost. And so that kind of made an interesting little bent with her coming home and seeing her dad, the president, right, being like, I'm going to make chili and we're going to all hang out together. And I liked the humor in all of that. I liked him, Charlie, being introduced to her. I'm going to hold my tongue until the next episode when we talk about it. But it was interesting to see her and then kind of like think over the next 30 years, basically, or 20 years, and think, oh, here's where everybody's career has gone since this time.
Yeah. I will say, for your sake, that she is sparsely used throughout the show.
Thank God.
I think her most prominent moments come the end of season 5, I think. Mm-hmm. Maybe beginning of season 6.
Okay.
But also there's a entire plot line coming, I think, yet with her this season. But otherwise, she kind of like drops in for an episode and then back out. Like, she is not a regular in the same way that the rest of the staff is regular.
Well, she can't be. She's supposed to be away at college.
Well, away at college is like across town in Georgetown.
I know, but that's away at college. You're supposed to leave your kids alone, even if it's across town.
Okay. Sure.
This one, I did really like this big block of cheese concept. I had never heard of that being a thing. They explain the setup very well. I liked that a whole lot. I liked that there was lots of eye rolling. I actually looked up the wolves thing when they were asking for $900 million for this wolves only highway, and they were like freaking out at that. And I'm like, that's definitely a ton of money. And then I was like, but what would that be in 2026 dollars? It's $1.77 billion.
Oh, so it hasn't even completely doubled.
No, because like the spending power, I think, is like 50 cents to the dollar, but still, that's an exorbitant amount of money. Seeing Nick Offerman was fantastic. Love him in pretty much everything.
Oh, I am definitely leaving this in.
Sorry.
This is the part of being unabridged.
Well, fuck, I have to take some pills. Please don't leave this part in.
I exude so much power here.
I can't. I should know better than to drink anything in front of you, because then I'm just going to laugh and it's going to come shooting at.
I'm not doing anything.
Okay. Sorry about that. Anyway, I forgot what we were saying.
You were talking about Nick Offerman and the Wolf Highway.
Something about the Wolf Highway. I do remember immediately thinking, and this is what CJ said, how are you going to get the wolves to read? Which is exactly what I would have said in that scenario. And then the whole fact that they said we can't do it because then there's going to be like a llama that wants to cross and they'll be all the yeah, I thought that was very, very funny. The alien one, not as funny, because that felt too real, especially given where I live and all of that type of stuff. But it was very, very, very good. And the little subplot with Josh and the card, I was absolutely fascinated with it. Just
that does come back.
I'm sure that it does, and especially with the kind of spate of programs and movies and stuff recently that have come out dealing with these things, like the show Paradise and what was the other one? Was it the Netflix show that I can't think of?
I don't know. You're going to have to help me out.
Lightning something?
Oh, Death by Lightning?
Is that it? Where they're trying to decide, Idris Elba is the president and he's trying to decide if he's going to flip the switch or not?
No.
You never saw that?
Well, Death by Lightning is a Netflix show, but it was about President Andrew Garfield.
Nope. You're right. That is what that is, but that's not. Hang on. Now I'm going to fucking look it up.
Okay.
And you're going to cut this out too. A House of Dynamite. That's what it was.
Oh, the Catherine Bigelow movie.
Yes.
Okay.
Anyway, I thought it was interesting. I'm always fascinated with those sorts of scenarios, having grown up still when the Cold War was going on and things like that. It's something that still is under my skin even today with the stuff that's going on currently in the Middle East, things like that. It's just an interesting conflation of these things and just kind of pondering about our mortality. And also, this totally made me think that CJ and Josh totally have chemistry and I want them to smooch.
That does not happen.
I figured, but if I was watching this for the very, do you know what I mean? That's what I would think.
So the nuclear bomb being in a bunker stuff was not what I meant would come back. That does not come back. It's Josh and how he compartmentalizes or deals with his trauma that will come back.
Okay. Makes sense. Yep.
In frankly, one of my favorite episodes of the show.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So everything having to do with his sister and how he interacts with the rest of I feel there's a lot of character expansion for him here as he kind of works through all of these complex feelings that he's having. It's why I sent you the trigger warning, because you know, there's a whole lot of guilt and pain and trauma, etc., that is all manifested in this episode. And the scene he has with the psychiatrist, grade A television. Like, just, I don't know how they would write it much better than that, as far as like the complexity of it and dealing with a character who's going through all of these things. And slowly, over the course of the show, I mean, right now, it doesn't feel that way, but as we continue to move through the show, it becomes much more Bradley Whitford's show by the end of it.
Mm-hmm. I can see that would be an arc. And I think you're right, because that scene with the psychiatrist, it's not a super long scene, but all of the most precise things are said in order to present how much of an emotional situation this is for him, and how he is struggling to be vulnerable while also grappling with the actual real survivor's guilt of his sister dying, but then being handed, well, and now you're going to be the ultimate survivor, or the designated survivor. Have you watched that show, Designated Survivor?
You asked me this last time, and I gave you an answer.
And it was no.
It was definitely not. No.
No, wait, you told me that you had.
No, I have not.
You have not? See? Okay. Anyway, so that he will still be another survivor, right? And continue to have guilt. And the fact that he returns the card and says, I don't want this anymore because I want to be with my friends. Especially the scene later when they all go and have chili, and such.
When Bartlett makes the speech at the end, I cried.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's so many pieces of that are aspirational, that are inspirational, that are appealing to a heart of, again, a value system. One of the things I really love about the show is its appeal to our better angels at almost every turn.
Right.
Of what we believe in ourselves as an American identity, what we'd like to think that America is. And by being this idyllic thing, you give a face and a voice and a name to what we consider about American identity. Why we think of, although I would say that we're not quite as exceptional as some people believe, but what the concept of American exceptionalism is.
Sure. And the fact that this is such a human response, such a human... it's an existential crisis, right? What happens if, and who gets to stay and who doesn't get to stay? And these are the people that I spend all of my time with. The fact that they're spending time with each other still outside of work, like they can never escape each other, but that it is still a choice. It has that found family feeling to it that feels a little bit more genuine than, say, I don't know, a show like Friends, where they're all just hanging out at the same coffee shop every day and there's no, why are you guys, I don't know. So they feel like real people, I guess. Maybe is this episode makes me feel like these are real people, because there's not something huge that's going on other than the potential for a nuclear disaster.
Well, and I know that we're leaking into the next episode by me going to this place, but you see how late they are at the office. And literally when you're in the White House, your home and your office are in the same location, separated by basically a long walkway.
I was thinking the same thing, that you cannot escape it and how stressful that must be. And I very much need the work-life separation. Like, I need to be able to as my mom calls it, pulling up the drawbridge at the end of the day. And you're just like, okay, I'm done. Even if I'm working at home, but I need there to be a separation. And I cannot imagine how stressful that is.
I very much feel that to myself as well. In high school, I didn't have homework. because I didn't take anything home with me if I could ever help it. I wanted that to stay separate, and I wanted school to remain at school. Obviously, that is no longer the case, as I'm working all the time, basically.
Right.
But I have certain parameters where I will stop at a certain time in the evening, and you shall go no further. Right. Whatever's left is going to have to wait till tomorrow.
Right. There's only so many usable hours in the day, and it's interesting to think that the president or the government like definitely has office hours, but also absolutely does not. There are boundaries, and yet there are no boundaries. Right.
Well, we've already seen in, I think it was episode 2, was when the plane gets shot down. That happens at like 2 or 3 in the morning. Leo's in the office. We see in the next episode, from what we're talking, so episode 6, that they're all there waiting for a vote that's probably happening at midnight on the East Coast. And then, in the opening scene of that episode, one of them is asking the other one to come back to his office and explain stuff to him.
Yeah.
So they're there at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. They will barely go home, and they will turn around. In the opening episode of the pilot episode, I think we did have an exchange between Josh and Sam about, are you wearing yesterday's suit? Yeah.
Yeah, they both are. Yeah.
and my larger point to all of this is that you mentioned the found family and the rest of it. This is their environment. They live inside the West Wing for as long as there's an administration.
Yeah.
And the burnout is real. I mean, there's a reason that turnover within the executive staff happens at quite a significant rate, because people just cannot keep up with that level of constant churn. The idea of the president aging per term, I get it. The more you watch this show, the more apparent it is how much they just cannot ever take a break from what it is to run, quite literally, the largest employer in the world.
Well, and it's interesting because we have to recognize that these people are real people, right? They're human beings, and they're flawed human beings, and yet somehow we're expecting more and more perfection at all costs, right? And that with our 24-hour news cycle, yes, government is 24 hours, as you've just said, but like our news cycle is just constantly going. And that's kind of our modern situation, that there seems to no longer be room for any sort of downtime, right? So if a president were to go and, I don't know, play a round of golf just because they need to chill out for a second. I'm using golf because that seems to be a thing presidents like to do.
Yeah, all of the most recent ones have played a lot of it. But,
correct,
okay.
Right? And whatever, I can't play golf. But the idea...
You could play golf, you just would play it poorly.
We can't put this on the air, but I physically cannot play golf because of my boobs. I've tried. I cannot swing properly because my boobs are always in the way. There's no way for me to actually get my arms together appropriately to swing a golf club. Anyway, so if the president is going out and needs to take a break, we're pissed off. Why are you going off and playing golf? Why are you on vacation? Why are you spending time with your family? You need to be running the country. But we have the same expectations, bizarrely, for like surgeons and things like that, right? You need to be working a 36-hour shift straight where you're not sleeping, and we expect you to never make a mistake in all of that time. And it is, the grind is insane. And then regular little people like me as a teacher feel that as well, right? Wasn't I just telling you the other day that like I slept for a long time and I felt guilty about that? That's ridiculous.
I think that, well, and frankly, the reason I ran away from law as long as I did was because I kept telling myself, I don't want to work as hard as my dad. Well,
uh-oh.
Yeah, I kind of put myself into that one. But I think more than anything, you have to enjoy the grind.
Yeah.
You have to enjoy the process. I mean, anybody who's really good at anything that they do, the tennis players, they don't, yes, I'm sure winning like Roland Garros would be an enormous accomplishment. But that's not what fuels them. It's getting up at 6 a.m. to hit 500 balls before you have a protein bar. You know, that kind of stuff. The stuff that would be absolutely boring to the rest of us.
Right.
But it's just going through those processes over and over and over and over again. The amount of golf balls that Tiger Woods has probably hit in his life is just...
Well, but that's the thing is, if you take someone like Babe Ruth, right, how many home runs has he hit, but also how many times...
714.
Correct. And then how many times has he struck out, right? Or how many pitches has he missed or whatever. So the most successful people still have huge deficits in terms of their do you know what I mean? So it's like, oh, you did this really, really amazingly well. Tiger Woods, yes, awesome. But also,
well, and it's the one thing that's been really removed from modern politics is it's not that there's no room for error. There's no room for error because we don't trust these people, because we don't see them as capable of being flawed. I mean, one of the graceful things about this show as well, and we'll get to this, I'm sure, as we go along, but I mean, there have been times here, the president's already been shown to be personally upset and emotionally invested and angry in a situation where he has to remain objective. Over and over and over again, the show demonstrates the humanity of the people in charge, but that ultimately we would trust these people because we get to see them exercise their moral compass.
Right. And so here, is it this episode or the next one where Bartlett is taking his medicine and he took too many at the same time and so he's super loopy? It's one of these two. And he's sitting...
I forget which one, but
okay.
Yeah, okay.
But anyway, so he overtakes his medication. Okay. And so he's basically...
Actually, I think it was the previous episode. I think it's 4.
Okay.
Because that's when they solved Toby's like problem with his disclosure.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, right. But we're talking about the humanity of all of this, right? And how can these people be flawed? In today's world, or within the last 10, 15 years, the president accidentally taking too much of his meds and being loopy and dopey would be leaked. And then everybody would say, oh, incompetent, get him out. He's an asshole. Sure. Somebody's drugging him, right? Or he didn't do it to himself. His doctor, even though he got shot down in a plane, is clearly from beyond the grave, haunting him, whatever. It would just be a whole thing.
You are not inaccurate in any of that. Partially because the last 2 presidents have been very old.
Correct.
You know, I think it's heightened as much as that is. But also, on the flip side of this, nobody in politics for 30 years has been willing to say, I was wrong.
Okay, true.
So we hold them to the standard that if they're never willing to admit they're wrong, then we have to tell them they're wrong, and they have to... I mean, to err is human, to forgive is divine. If we're going to hold it to that standard, I don't understand why... 2 things that really annoy me about politics. Saying I was wrong, because people are wrong all the time. Like, you take stances and sometimes you just didn't either have all the facts or any of the number. Sometimes just say you were wrong. I think people's power to forgive is a lot bigger than politicians give the capacity for. And 2, I changed my mind. Wow, what a novel concept. There was new information and suddenly I changed my mind based on the facts. Those are the 2 things that, being inside politics, I just could never understand. And frankly, when we talk about politicians as
being authentic or whatever else. Being loud, not being filtered, and speaking with a lack of thought is somehow mentioned to be authentic, when really what I think people are wanting is somebody that's human.
And you're more likely to make gaffes, and therefore, so we want them to be human, but we also want to, unfortunately, I think the only way that we can see them be human is if we see them make mistakes. And then we get some pleasure out of watching people who are famous or celebrities or politicians. We enjoy seeing them make mistakes or have a fall from grace, because that's how you have proof positive that they're human. Because, as you said, I agree, seeing people grapple with things morally, ethically, and struggle with those things and potentially could have their mind changed, that is absolutely interesting. And that's how we should be as people, no matter what our job is, right? That's how we should just interact with the world at large on a day-to-day basis. We should never be so rigid that we can't even engage in conversation, and that it does just get into a screaming match, right? And whoever is the loudest and the most, I don't know, spasmodic is going to be the winner. That's not how it works, but that's also now how it works, right? And so we keep looking for people to make mistakes, but then those mistakes are magnified, and they're supposed to be like, it's a microcosm of a bigger issue and all of these things. No, maybe the president just took too many drugs on that day, right? And he was with his like 5 best friends in the White House, and they're the only people who saw it happening, and nobody needed to know, and it was just, he had to take a nap, right? Like, let's just let it go.
All right, since we've mentioned it already and we're running a little bit short on time, let's move to the final episode that we'll be discussing this evening. That would be Mr. Willis of Ohio. Yes. This premiered on November 3rd, 1999. Directed by Christopher Miziano, I think that's how to pronounce it, and written by Aaron Sorkin. Summary for this one: the senior staff and the president take part in a late-night poker game inside the West Wing. A social studies teacher from Ohio finishes the term of his late wife in the United States House of Representatives, while Sam tutors CJ about the U.S. Census. And the staffers seek crucial votes in favor of a bill to use statistical sampling, which will be more accurate, and free funds for other uses. Zoe has an unfortunate encounter in which she needs the help of the U.S. Secret Service while at a Georgetown College bar in the company of friends from the White House. This displeases her father, who lectures her about the nightmare scenario, the possibility of her abduction being used against the government. Later, the staff and the president sit down to another poker game while Toby watches the end of the roll call for the bill. So, likes, dislikes here.
I really liked this episode, like a whole lot. Charlie skyrocketed to the front of the line for me by the end of the episode. I was like, this is so interesting, and I'm just waiting. I'm waiting to see what happens with him. He's a great actor, and that whole scene in the bar where they're like, okay, they're dragging him out because he needs to have some life experience, but he's so dialed in, and he is the only one who is paying attention. And this whole scenario in there, as a woman, I just started getting really panicky and was like, oh gosh, this is awful. This is awful. And he is right there, and it's played out so perfectly. Of course, Elizabeth Moss is absolutely annoying, but that whole scene that she has once she gets back home and is talking to Bartlett, and this is kind of what dates the show a teeny bit, is, what were you doing to egg them on? You were probably flirting with them, right? Oops, I didn't like that, right? But that's also me in 2026 recognizing that is absolutely what someone would have said in 1999 to a girl who has unwanted. Mm-hmm.
As written by a man who has been criticized
prominently for how poorly he writes women characters.
Sure. But that's not something that she says. That's something that the father says. And I think that is absolutely of the time. And because then he does move away from that and says, here's the nightmare scenario, right? And this is why these things are really difficult. And this clearly means that something's going to happen to her later on. But I liked this component, and I like that we're getting it out of the way. This felt like some of the stuff that we've seen in like Night Agent, for example, but on a smaller scale. And I liked that the hero was more unexpected, right? It's this character who hasn't been around for too long, still hasn't had a ton of time. And then I loved the Congressman Willis component. He felt like a human to me, like a real person they were like, let's call that guy whose wife did actually die and just have him on the show. Like, I liked that. And as we were just saying, he changes his mind, right? He does what we want people to do, which is he listens to all of the information. And it's so touching to Toby too, that Toby, he said, well, why did you change your mind? Well, because you convinced me, right? This very much feels like what we want in courtroom drama, right? Like 12 Angry Men, where you have somebody who's willing to stand up and go against the grain and say, I don't agree with this, and I want a recount, right? Or I'm going to vote the way my conscience is telling me, and not because you're trying to strong arm me. And so this to me felt even more idealistic than even some of the previous episodes, because it was much more quiet, and because Toby gets to kind of have a little bit of a win. When I feel it, and this may not be accurate, I think sometimes I feel like he's a little bit of a punching bag, and that's maybe not necessarily true, but I think I like Toby a lot, and so I'm just kind of always like rooting for him. So I really liked this episode.
He definitely gets the short end of the stick, but I think he doesn't help himself a lot.
Sure. Yep.
I think his bravado, his brashness, the way he argues it feels very reminiscent of me.
Okay, maybe that's why I like him.
That's fair. I did love the turn of play when they're reading it off, and then they surprise you with frankly, anybody who's taken high school social studies should remember 3/5 of a person. But when they pull it out, and I'm like, oh, shit, yeah, okay. All right, now we got it.
Yeah, it was beautifully done, beautifully set up. And the fact that, I mean, and it's, he can choose to write whatever job for this character that he wants, but he very specifically, right, you are a social studies teacher, and so it just all comes together so well. And this is why I liked it even more, because the moral implications with this resonated with me even more than like the gun bill sort of thing and the kind of strong arming that went on with that. This was like, and here's the other thing that I think is really interesting. My mom actually worked for the census, maybe the last census, and she actually did go, she was going door to door to like track people down. And it's a fascinating attempt to, yes, count people, and having had a teeny bit of a personal view into how that actually works and how overwhelming it is and how hard census workers work in order to try to get as much information as it's, to me, very, very interesting.
Well, and to be honest, I don't know if the Wikipedia summary of this actually is accurate, because really all they're doing is they're pulling out an addendum or an amendment that would tack on to the appropriations bill,
right,
that you can't do sampling. And really all they're saying is we're going to pull this out. So it's not that you can do sampling, it's that you haven't restricted the ability to do sampling. And so, in other words, we're just funding things. But
I think kind of the way that they were kind of making it feel like, because I think it is much more simple the way that you present it, but it has the feeling like of gerrymandering, right? Like, ooh,
Right.
the implications of all of this is, it feels more serious than it actually is. But I also think, like, yeah, the census stuff that's way more complicated and complex than most people would think, right?
Well, and it is a political football.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen that play out in recent court cases and
Mm-hmm.
a number of different things about what questions you can ask on the census.
Yep.
So all of this makes sense to me, again, from somebody who explores a lot of politics and is very much a political junkie. But I understand you have to raise the stakes in the episode to make it feel like there's more there.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's two big moments. It's the number of free persons reveal and the bar fight thing in this episode.
Charlie being freaking rad. Yay,
So
Charlie.
is it fair to say that in ranking of how much you enjoyed them, that it would be inverted so it'd be 6, 5, 4?
In terms of these episodes, yeah. Yeah, it was basically, you went 4, 5, 6, right? 4 was okay, 5 was better, 6 was the best out of the 3. And I'm trying not to feel like it's just because it was the last one, but because I really felt like that fourth one was very, very chaotic. And these ones were, maybe I'm just a simple woman and my brain can't handle too many things. I would like to think that I can handle things, but I'm also, you know what? It's looking at the way that this was set up, right? These last 2, 5 and 6, written by Aaron Sorkin, but number 4, the story, even though Sorkin wrote it, the story is by people who are political commentators and who are like functioning within politics, right? So they're presenting the ideas. And so I think that probably flavors it a little bit on why I felt it was a little bit more muddled, because they were obviously, here's the story, now please write it for us. And he said, okay, I will write it. And it's not as tight to me as the ones that Aaron Sorkin clearly writes by himself. Right.
Well, and if this were 12 episodes a season as opposed to 22, 24,
Sure.
whatever,
Yes.
I think that it would have been more possible for him to write them all by himself, or that he was tied to a network schedule. But
Sure.
okay, granted,
Sure.
I get where all of that's coming from. The reason that I ask you about your enjoyment level for each of these individual ones is you're going to have to keep track, because at the end of the season, I'm going to ask you which one should be nominated to represent this entire season as the best.
Okay.
Because we will be going through and we will be creating eventually a grading rubric to grade each of these seasons
Okay.
to slot them as we
Okay.
go through different shows.
Okay. Fair enough. Wait, I have a list. I have a list here of all the episodes, and I'm going to, yes.
So hopefully 6 is not too hard to keep track of so far.
No. And I'm like looking at the other 3, and now I'm like, okay, I gotta decide on these ones too. Okay. Making
All right.
my notations.
All right, so any final thoughts for this week?
Well, Elizabeth Moss is terrible. Charlie is wonderful. I still want CJ and Josh to have a romance. I know it's not going to happen, but there were moments in these 3 that they feel, I don't know, it's just that feels the hopeless romantic in me.
I have an assumption you have not watched a certain Netflix show called The Diplomat, correct?
Correct.
Well, they are married in that show.
CJ and like those actors.
So Bradley Whitford and Allison Janney are married on that show.
But they're different characters.
Correct.
Now I gotta go look because I think they're so cute. Yeah, I think it's I have a preference for stuff that's a little more subtle. And I do think that one of my things that I am maybe struggling with is actually understanding what everybody's different roles are, right? And how it actually plays out in the White House or the West Wing, and how people are interacting with each other and their job responsibilities. But yeah, I'm interested just to see what happens. I like Josh. I don't like Josh, which I enjoy. I enjoy that feeling. I like Toby. I like Charlie. And CJ.
So obviously the president's job, we very much know what that is.
Yes.
Charlie's job as the body man is basically it's another form of an executive secretary. Mrs. Landingham controls his schedule. She controls who goes in and out. She keeps things running on time. Charlie, keeps track of his bags and,
right.
Anything that needs to support him to do anything, because he just can't take care of all of those things on his own. So,
like his glasses. Yeah, I got it.
Correct. That would be one of those. And he's going to have special access. Also, as the body man, he's the guy that goes and wakes him up at 2 a.m. when there's a plane shot down, wow. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of sensitivity to being in that position, because you are going to get yelled at when you're waking somebody up at 2 a.m. in the morning, that kind of thing.
Right.
Josh is basically third in charge. He's the deputy chief of staff. Anything that Leo can't directly handle, then it gets passed down to Josh. The actual communication is the rest of the primary characters, where it's CJ is obviously the most public facing of any of them. And you'll definitely see why, she has a very important job and what her role is and all the rest of that as it goes along. But then the communications team that does all the speech writing and tries to set what the legislative agenda is and how, because every word theoretically that the president says should matter. You have the bully pulpit. And so for each of them, that's what their very specific role to the rest of the administration is. Toby and Sam have less to do, with the exception in this one case where Toby's somehow negotiating on this bill. Frankly, most of the time, the communications director is not doing that. He's in the back basically being told, what are the things that we really need to hammer out for our speech on Thursday before the Boy Scouts of America kind of thing. And he's setting somewhat of the policy agenda that way, but through the actual speech writing. But he's serving multiple roles in this whole thing, so it just becomes additional advisors to whatever else is going on. So that's basically how they all more or less interact.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
So, enjoying the show? Not enjoying the show?
I am enjoying the show. Episode 4 was a little bit of a blip.
Sure.
But I am enjoying the show, and as I told you, I stopped myself from continuing to watch because I know that I will get confused. So I'm really going to have to stop myself and not do giant binges because I just want to consume it all. So I'm ready to continue watching, but I'm also struggling to not keep going. So that means I'm enjoying it.
It's a controlled binge. Is what it is.
Controlled binge. Yes, controlled binge. Writing that down.
For whatever purpose might you be doing so?
That could be a name for the show, Controlled Binge.
Well, at 3 episodes at a pop, yeah. But I feel the strain myself, because you fall back into the same patterns and you just want to just keep going until basically either you're tired or you need to do something else or go to sleep or whatever. And limiting yourself to 3 at a time because you don't want to go much further and start to bleed what's next and what's not,
I mean,
obviously
imagine only watching one episode at a time, because that's all that's available to you on network television.
Well, yes. Like I'm well aware of how that goes because, for example, I watched The Pit in like 2 or 3 days for what I think was 16 or 18 episodes last season, and now I'm having to watch them each week through the course of like 5 months kind of thing. So, yes, I'm used to the differences between that in various different shows, and I do watch things weekly as they release. That's not a problem for me per se. I haven't watched this show straight through in quite some time. It's a fun show and easily leads you to letting Netflix take over and hit the next episode button without you really paying attention if you're not closely with remote in hand. But at the same time, I also have the benefit of knowing where all of this is going, so it's not as much of a problem for me as I'm sure it is for you.
Right. Well, and this is the problem that we had watching Severance, right? Where I was dying. I got to basically watch the first season and just crank all of that out, and then sitting and waiting for the next episode killed me. I forget what appointment television is like, and I'm very much a person who binges everything until like I'm done and will do it just like that, which is also why I'm holding off on watching this next season of The Pit, even though I love that show, because I'm just like, I don't want to watch it all at once and then have nothing. So I'm going to wait until everything is out, and then I can, if I feel the need, I can binge it all, or I can take my time, because I really hate waiting.
Okay. Well, I think that's a good stopping point here for this episode. We're at the 62-minute mark.
Uh-oh.
So not terrible for timing on what we had been doing, but since neither of us knows how to apparently end the show unless we basically have a credits reading, which we still don't have because we don't have all of the attributes yet.
Correct.
Let's just call a capper here and say goodnight, Gracie.
Good night, Gracie. Excellent.